It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Welcome, folks. Today, folks, I'm going to tell you we're going to change your lives. Yes, we are. We're going to change your lives. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to call your friends, your relatives, whoever, and make sure they watch this episode of The Sam Lesante Show. And I promise you, at the end of this show, you're going to be able to change your lives, particularly for those of us who have some problems in our life. Today, we have a person who wrote a book called Disguised Blessings. Her name is Chara Davis, and it's an amazing book. It's something that you're going to really appreciate because we all have concerns, especially our past. It's one woman's inspiring story of transformation and a model for reclaiming your life. Well, Chara, as I said to you before, this could be a 3-hour show. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, so to give me a synopsis of the book. And when sometimes people say book, well, it's boring. There's no way this book is boring because it really affects people's lives. Tell me about your specific life, when things started going crazy in your life, and then what happened that this book then evolved.
Things started going very badly when I was 4 years old. 4 years old. When my mother got very ill. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and she was in a coma for about 6 months. So myself and my siblings were sent to live with a variety of friends and family. My mother was only 16 years old when she had me, so we were sent with a variety of family members, and one was my abuser.
Okay, so you start becoming sexually abused.
Yes.
Okay, and this started at the age of 6?
Yes.
And went up to age of 16?
12.
12. All right, so what happened? I mean, how was this exposed and what happened? I mean,
after 3 suicide attempts and therapy.
How old were you when you were trying to kill yourself?
The earliest age was 13. 16, the sexual abuse was revealed to my mom and dad by my therapist at the time. She revealed it in one of our therapy sessions.
And what happened then?
Nothing. The perpetrator was not confronted at the time.
Now, what it did to your life, and I could imagine there are so many other people out there that have, had different kind of abuses, all right? What happened then in your life at that time? You're now 13, you're experiencing, it says in the book, you've seen things that, you wouldn't want anyone to see, okay? Was that pertaining to your sexual abuse?
Yes, when you're a victim of any form of abuse, whether it's sexual, emotional, it doesn't matter. You need time to process those emotions. Going through abuse and then going home to a very disruptive family. My mother and father fought all the time. My mother would hit my father. And my mother was a very sick woman. She had multiple sclerosis, but she also was abused. And she was not able to parent us at the time. So leaving the perpetrator's house and going home was that was a huge challenge for me, because leaving the circumstances, leaving the situation, and not being able to talk to anybody, not being able to process what had just physically and mentally happened. Some of the beatings were pretty intense.
Beatings that your mother received?
That I received from my perpetrator. Going home.
He not only was sexually abusing you, he was also beating you.
Yes. My mother was either sick or she was in the hospital, so I never had an outlet to go to when I would come home from my stay with him.
And how about your other siblings? Did they know about what was going on?
It was only my sister at the time. My brother he wasn't born until I was 9. No, we were always separated. I was a handful. I was ornery. I was a hard child. So I was always sent by myself. I was never sent with my brother or my sister. Thank God my sister had never gone with this man. He never asked to take her either.
Okay, so you had no avenue at the time when you were being sexually abused to go to anyone or to cry out for help?
No, we spent most of our days taking care of my mother's needs, her mental needs. Her disease was debilitating. She was in bed most of my childhood.
Okay, so now this stopped at 13, right? you're at age 13.
Yes.
Okay, so at 16 it was revealed. Okay.
Yes.
So what then happened with your life? Okay, at 16, I mean, you had to be completely traumatized, you know, from all these things that are happening. Or did you continue to attempt to commit suicide?
Yes.
You did.
Yes, you're running from, you don't know what you're running from. You're not able to, I was angry. I was an angry child. I lashed out on everybody. No one was allowed near me. Physical touching was not even acceptable. You have to teach yourself how to do that. To me, it was an isolated event. These things only happened to me. So I always felt awkward in social situations or in high school. I always felt like I'm the only one that this has ever happened to, so I always felt weird.
All right, so you're in high school. Okay, did you have a quote, normal type high school life?
No. I was very self-destructive. I did anything and everything. Relationships, I looked for male relationships to satisfy my emotional sadness. I was very sad. So, yes, I was very destructive as a teenager.
So what happened when you graduated?
When I graduated, I went into the military for hopefully to gain respect from my parents, attention. Anytime I was constantly craving attention. I was not able to get attention at home, so when I was out in society and the world, I would look for that attention in a very bad way.
I see. What branch did you go into?
The United States Navy.
Okay. And in the Navy, did you get rehabilitated a little bit mentally?
No, it didn't last long. My mother became ill again during boot camp, and it was probably my 6th week into boot camp. I was honorably discharged to go home because my mother was ill again. So I needed to leave the Orlando base to go back to Pennsylvania with my mom.
What happened then when you went home?
It was very toxic, volatile, fighting. It wasn't a good experience. I ended up moving out and moving to Pittsburgh with 2 high school friends.
Okay, so now were you experimenting with drugs during those times?
Never.
Yeah.
I had smoked marijuana here and there, never liked the effects it had on me. Alcohol, didn't really like the taste. I enjoy a glass of wine as an adult, but it's not something that satisfied me whatsoever.
All right, so you have all this trauma in your life, all right? When then do you begin to see, well, okay, how do I get myself together? Because you say, you know, there are so many things that happened in your life that you wouldn't want this to happen to anybody. And people out there who could relate to not necessarily sexual abuse, but if they grew up with families or guardians who abused them physically or whatever, mentally, you know, so now you have all this experience, I mean, which was bad experience. What happens then? Did you begin to change a little bit? What brings you in the direction of getting back on track?
That didn't happen until I was 38 years old.
Is that right?
Yes, 38 years old. I had hit rock bottom. And
Now, were you married?
yes, I'm still married. My husband and
Well,
I.
how did you meet your husband?
I was bartending in a local bar while I was in college. He's my second husband. My first husband and I, we were only married 5 years. We met in a local bar I was bartending in.
Okay, so now you meet him.
Yes.
Is he aware of your past?
No, not for many years.
So he did not know you were physically abused?
No, not until we were married 3 years was it
Okay.
exposed.
And how did he react when he found out?
Perfect. Hugging therapy is what I call what my husband has done. No one was ever able to hug me. No one was ever allowed in that capsule. My husband spent 13 years of our marriage breaking that to where now I'm able to shake your hand, hug you, and I'm okay with that. And I give my husband credit for that.
You know, sometimes, you know, we hear stories like this, and it's like when you find out someone's sick or something, you have compassion for them, but you don't have that illness. And, you know, you could have apathy or sympathy, but, you know, how do you have apathy? How do you really understand? I mentioned to you before, sometimes when someone gets sick in your family or you yourself, whatever it may be, you find out, oh, Mabel had that same thing you have. And so you call Mabel and say, Mabel, what happened when you had this? And Mabel says, well, this is what I went through or I'm doing. So you try to learn something from those experiences. And from here, the sky's blessings. We come back after this break. I want to find out, you know, what starts, and you're 38 years old, you start realizing that you have to do something with your life. But then here's where the lesson comes in the books, where you go through all of the different things, and particularly the steps, which I find very interesting. Folks, I'm talking to Chara Davis. Saying that correct?
Chara.
Chara,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Chara Davis, who wrote the book, The Sky's Blessings. I've read a lot of these books, had a lot of people come on, and great authors. But I think this is something, a book, that you really should get and look at, particularly if you had some interesting things that happened in your past. And you can get this book on Amazon.com, okay? It's Amazon.com. It's called The Sky's Blessings. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show. Remember, 24/7, folks, you can watch all of our shows on SSPTV.com. All the shows we produce here in Hazleton. And remember, Comcast 190 in Pottsville every day. Comcast 190 in Lackawanna County Saturday and Sunday mornings 8 to 12. In the Wilkes-Barre and Mountaintop Service Electric Cable Communications Channel 92, Saturday and Sunday evenings. Folks, I said when I opened the show, excuse me, if you have any friends or relatives, I highly recommend that you tell them to watch this Sam Lesante Show. My guest is Chara Davis. She wrote the book, The Sky's Blessings. I want to give you an example. She says, many of us, possibly all of us, have experienced heartbreak, grief, or personal defeat that has stopped us dead in our tracks. In order to thrive after horrible experiences, abuse, or neglect, you must change your thinking. Our thoughts become things. In my book, The Sky's Blessings, I walk readers through the ugly, dark reality of what emotional and physical torture looks like. Then she guides you through 12 steps that will lead you to their individual recovery. I gently explain 7 tips on creating balance, harmony, and spiritual equilibrium. Now, you've lived this hard. You've actually lived it, you know, with the sexual abuse, etc. Now, you get married. You still had to struggle before, you know, during your marriage, personally with this, what happened? Yeah.
Yeah. Whether you've gone through recovery and you're healing and you're living a successful, happy life, when you are a victim of sexual abuse, any form of abuse.
And beatings on top of that.
Yes.
Okay. Not only were you sexually abused at 6 years old up until 13, you said?
Yes.
You were also beaten, okay?
Yes.
So that must have been a horrible, horrible nightmare. All right, so you hit 38. What happens when you're 38 years old?
38, I had spent 10 years, great life, successful personal training, working in local facilities, and I had a collapse, emotional collapse, a demise, I will call it. I always self-destructed, and I began to self-destruct my relationship.
Well, you said you always felt destructive. What do you mean by that?
If I had anything good, a relationship as my husband, I will say my husband, I would destroy that. I never felt I was worthy enough to have anything good.
Okay, so your self-esteem was down the tubes.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So 10 years into my marriage with my husband now, I had slowly, personally, I demised. The marriage came to a halt. I started doing things and acting out for about 3 months. My husband gave me an ultimatum. You need help other than the therapy you have currently been using. I spent 5 weeks in Malibu beach recovery. It cost my family $50,000 to do this, but it saved my life. The therapy, the somatic therapy, being able to go back to the age of 5 when the abuse occurred, I was able to feel the emotions, which I never opened Pandora's box up until that point. I had always suppressed it, and never did I experience the situation up until Malibu.
So when did you start getting the inspiration to write this book, The Sky's Blessings, which I find an interesting title, and I understand now why it's called The Sky's Blessings?
A lot of the book came from my personal journal entries. I've always journaled from the age of 16 till today. I feel that journaling, writing, reading it, and feeling your experiences really help process what you're actually feeling inside. And it's interesting because when I go to a journal entry at the age of 16, how my writings were so raw, sad. Like I could feel that again. And then I look at a journal entry from 3 weeks ago.
You know, there are so many people, particularly in northeastern Pennsylvania, they grew up different ways, and they live in the past, okay? And sometimes I have great memories of my family, okay? I miss them. My wife and I always talk about the Sunday dinners we had. And, you know, every family has some kind of concern. It's the loving part that you need to understand. You know, I remember a person, I'm mad at this person, and he came to see me, and I was upset, and he looked at me and says, Sammy, right now I need your help. I don't need your hell, okay? And sometimes in family members, we need to give help, even though it's, I told you so, I told you so. So you've been through all of that stuff, all right? And so now in the book, you begin to give us understandings of how to overcome these things in the past, okay? So how did you begin to start thinking of writing these books, okay? And what are some of the key elements, because I said I could go on to the show for 3 hours, to help people out there who may be struggling with something in their life?
It starts with your mindset. Your thoughts become your reality. If you think you are bad, you react badly. You have to want to change your life more than anything. I collapsed on the floor the day that this happened, and I was sick and tired of my own nonsense. And I stood up and I looked out the mirror, 38 years old, and up until that point, I felt I had done nothing right, and it was time that I changed my life. And I think it's very important for people to understand change starts with you and how you view yourself.
Now, did you ever get to the point saying, why me? Why me?
Always. Always. I spent most of my life. Why? Why couldn't I made up my childhood for social high school. I would make up fairy tale scenarios of what my family was because I didn't want to reveal the raw.
Okay, so your past was terrible. Okay, you lived through a very terrible past. But you say here in the book, which got me, you actually can have a happy past.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Forgive. You must not only forgive the people who have harmed you, you need to forgive yourself. Without forgiveness, you cannot have a happy past. It changed the whole element on, when I look back now, I do see happy points in my life. You have to forgive. I forgive my perpetrator. I have no anger towards him whatsoever, which my spirituality has helped a great deal with that.
The thing is, again, there are people who dwell on the past, and it's so sad because it's sucking so much energy out of their lives, okay? I think so anyway. When you dwell on the past, you know, you said you move on with the forward. Now, here we talk about spirituality, okay? And believe me, I'm a sinner like everybody else, and things in my life, you say, why did you do them, okay? Well, but now you did them. So but the point is, thank God I have a spirituality, okay? And thank God I practice by faith. And I don't care what faith it is. It doesn't, I'm Roman Catholic, but however, it doesn't make any difference. I have good Jewish friends, perfect. I have a lot of Protestant friends. Anyway, it doesn't make any difference as long as you have a spirituality. How important was God and spirituality in your recovery process?
Critical. And in my book, I even say, you need to have a higher power. Mine is Christianity. I look for God every day. I say the Serenity Prayer every day. He is my go-to. If I feel like I'm going to make a very bad decision again, I go to God. I say a prayer. I can't tell you how many times a day I pray. Your mind, you have to keep your mind strong. You go back to bad thoughts many times a day, and He pulls me right through that. If I say a prayer, or if I say the Serenity Prayer, or if I just talk to Him, to God, my God.
Yeah, well, I think we all have the same God. Okay, the thing is, when you're looking at your steps here, okay, and you know, your past, your parents, your mother's illness, any abuse, what you witnessed, and all these things that happen, you continue to say, all right, now you state what they are, and you say, believing in a greater power and the decision you made. So even today, you depend on that power, spiritual power to exist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the foundation of any decision I make for myself, my family, and my future. I am not perfect, but I still make mistakes. I still mess up. I still yell at my kids.
Well, that's being normal.
I'm normal. I don't have a perfect life. However, God is definitely my go-to.
In the book, okay, what made you then decide that you wanted to write this, okay, and what is it that you would want people to get from this book?
I want people to know that they are not alone. This is not an isolated situation. There are resources in our community all over the nation, the world, to help survivors. You don't want to just go through life surviving. You want to live, and that's possible. I felt that I really needed to reach. I wish I had this book when I was going through some of my toughest times, to be able to pick up a book and read that someone else had similar experiences. From all of the reviews coming in on Amazon, I have noticed that whether you were sexually abused, you're able to relate to this book in one way or the other. It's not sexual abuse is not the foundation, but it's about pulling yourself out of any traumatic, anything.
And the reason why I say that people should really read this book if they're having experiences, because I think this is a great jumpstart for a person to get the real and say, okay, let me move in the direction to get rid of the pain that I have, because in here you touch on a lot of these things.
I do, and you not only using my spiritual connection, you have to take care of your body. You have to feed your body. Nutrition, that's what I practice with all my clients.
Yeah.
You have to exercise. You have to take care of your body. You can't mistreat your body.
And what do you have? You have your own workout place?
Personal training studio.
Personal training school?
Yes.
Okay. Chara Davis, okay, wrote the book, Disguised Blessings. Folks, it's interesting. It really is an interesting book because it talks about the pain and physical abuse that she experienced. And in there she gives you some interesting concepts of what you could do to better your life and to make that past not as dismal as it was, but to forgive. We come back right after this. We'll talk a little bit more to Chara. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show. Folks, my guest today, the author of Disguised Blessing, Chara Davis. To give you an example, folks, if you've had anything in your life, whether it was abuse, neglect, etc., she says here, the 12 steps created balance, harmony, and spiritual equilibrium. First step, we admit it, we were powerless over our addictions, and our lives become unmanageable. And she emphasizes this. This is by far one of the most important things one needs to understand. Before you can begin to implement the steps, you must admit you are not able to control the outcome of your life without a positive intervention. What do you mean by that?
Not only the positive intervention is you need professional help. You need, if you are a recovering addict or you're dealing with trauma, you need to have a professional. You need to have, I believe therapy is key.
There are people probably, I have a huge audience, thank God, but there are people, it's mostly 50 plus, and a lot of young people, but mostly. And I'm sure there's people out there that know people who may think that they're being abused. For those people who are being abused and felt the way you did, surrounded, smothered, and afraid, what advice do you have for them?
If you have any suspicion that abuse is going on with you, you've got to turn it in. You have to confront the perpetrator. You can't let it go. It destroys people. It destroys their future, who they become. It alters their entire being. You can't just sit by and watch it. You can't know about it and not do something to prevent it from continuing. We're people. You can't disregard any form of abuse.
What do you hope? I know that you've forgiven and your past is, you said I've changed it, but what do you hope would have happened with your situation when you were 6 years old and you were being sexually abused and beaten on top of it until you became 13 years old? What do you wish would have happened through that time? Because you were numb. You couldn't go anywhere.
I was scared to death to tell anyone. I wish I would have told my mom and dad, because I know if I told my mom and dad, I would never have been sent back with that man, ever. I wish.
Was that man married?
Yes.
Was that man's wife aware of what was going on?
Supposedly no, but I don't know how you can not know that's going on.
Well, first of all, that man is sick, period, okay? And you really feel sorry for people like that because they're sick. But I mention this because, so what would you wish that you have gone to your mom and dad, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The lesson again from this book, Disguised Blessing, folks, you can get it at Amazon.com. It's called Disguised Blessings. And that's what they were. They were blessings that were disguised, okay? And you were able to write this book. You're doing well. You have 3 children, okay? You're married, for 13 years,
Yes.
okay? Wait till you hit 42 years. That would be really fun. But the thing is that, I admire you. I really do, okay? And I'm glad Paul called me or emailed me and told me about this book because I think, as I said, this could be a lesson. One Sunday morning, Chara Davis' life went to hell. And that's exactly what happened, folks. Anything in closing?
No, if you're being abused or you are afraid, you've got to speak up. You have to tell people, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
It not only has to do with abuse, it could also do with something in your past that wasn't good. Okay, it doesn't have to do with sexual abuse, but it's a book that'll help you out. Believe me, it really would. And spirituality is so very important.
Yes.
Well, I wish you the very best, and thanks for coming.
Thank you very
in.
much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. Chara Davis, folks. The book is Disguised Blessings, Amazon.com. Get the book. Believe me, you'll thank me for this. See you next time.